So this is it. You've made it to day one of this thing, and we're going to be talking chapter one of Cisco One. Now, when we say Cisco One, what it really is this introduction to networks. And the idea here is we want to expose you to what computer networking really is. It's not just going to be, hey, cool, I can game on Steam, or I can use Origin, or look at me, I'm doing Skype and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. That's not the internet. That's the applications we see on top of the internet. So when we talk introduction to networks, we're really focusing on what allows the applications in your online gaming and PayPal and eBay to actually work. And that's the cool thing is we have to take that moment of ingenuity, that moment of research and say, hey, you know what? This is kind of cool, especially how fast I get a receipt when I do an online payment. This is kind of cool how I can download a game off of Steam at like 10 megs a second. This is pretty sweet. I wonder how that actually works. Well, that's what we're getting into inside of Cisco Networking in this Introduction to Networks course. This is really an intro chapter. We don't go too deep in this chapter except for one section, which I'll talk about, and that's section 1.2. We're going to walk through how the world's interconnected. We're going to walk through what are LANs, WANs, and even the wide area, big, beautiful internet. Then we'll even talk about how the networks have been changing and how our networks are actually growing exponentially. And lastly, we'll do a little bit of Cisco promo. I gotta say it, they do Cisco promo in some of these courses. We'll talk about some networking trends and some products that Cisco likes to push. So let's focus on the fun. I take Cisco's PowerPoints because they can be dry, and I make them fun, I guess. I try to make them more applicable. So, boom, networking today. We talk about how networking has changed our lives and why networking is important to us, not because we all want to buy stuff on Amazon and eBay, or we want to stream stuff using Amazon, or you want to stream stuff using Pandora or Netflix. Well, the world has changed. We didn't have things like Netflix before because we didn't have internet connections that were strong enough and servers that were strong enough to deliver streaming movies to people across the entire world. But now we do. So IT and computer network has changed the way that we can sit and relax and watch a movie. IT and networking has put companies and businesses like Blockbuster out of business. Used to be big names back in the day. But networking also has changed how we learn. For example, here we are in an online course where you can listen to me, share my screen with me, and watch what I'm doing. I can even give any one of you control of my screen right now, and you can start saying, well, I'm going to teach the class now, Justin. And you'd have control to do that. So networking has learned even how we can change how we learn in our classes themselves. Also, when we talk about how we work, I teach here at Moraine Valley. I teach full time. Technically, I'm overtime with all the classes I teach. But besides that, I have two other jobs I do. I get to teach instructors how to teach these courses, and I get to certify instructors to teach these classes I'm teaching you. I do that from home, online. I was in Florida on vacay, and I'm sitting on the beach at Florida on my laptop working from Florida on the beach and getting paid to do it. Well, because of the internet and IT and a 4G LTE network connection off of my laptop, I'm able to sit anywhere I want and work from a beach or anywhere. Besides, I have another job, which I get to do 20 hours a week, and I get to work for Cisco. I do some IT and some course building and video creation for Cisco, and that's 20 hours a week. As long as I have an internet connection, I'm getting paid for 20 hours a week. It's awesome. All you need is an internet connection, and you can make pretty good money. So it's amazing what we can do with our networks. Now in this course, Cisco likes to test you on items like this. Rote memorization does come into play. So just knowing what is texting versus social media, those are easy. The more difficult one, of course, is collaboration tools. Well, what's a collaboration tool? WebEx. Cisco WebEx, what you're on right now, is a collaboration tool. Anyone at any time in this session can open up a chat and start collaborating with somebody else. We can even do breakout groups where I can take everybody who's logged into WebEx with me right now and I can divvy you up into different groups and then you could collaborate together. When you're in your own groups, you even get a white space. You get your own paper, electronic, that you can actually put text on, you can put images in, and you can actually collaborate on projects together. Also, think of Google Docs. If you use Google Docs, that's collaboration tools. You can have 4 or 5 people working on the same document, making revisions to one single live document. It's amazing what you can do nowadays with technology. Blogs, we see this more with people who like to work at home and be able to document as well as even be able to sell their services. For example, even if you think of things like Etsy, a lot of people who sell stuff on Etsy want to have their own webpage. So either they may make a blog about themselves and what they do, or they may make a wiki, a full wiki page where they can have a group of people that can all work towards a common goal. One of my Cisco jobs that I work on, the one that I get to do 20 hours a week from home at, I can actually go to it, but we have our own wiki page. 20 hours a week, remote workers that never see each other. One of our workers in South America, 2 of them are in Canada, 1 of them's in California, then 2 more are in Florida. We never see each other. So this is our wiki page. We have a place that we can all coordinate. We can see who's going on holidays and vacations, how many hours a week different people are allowed to work, and sprints and all that weird stuff. We even have meeting notes about what's going on specific days and times. A wiki is a group collaboration page that we can all edit, and we can put our own info in so we can stay on top of our assignments and be able to actually collaborate and work together. Imagine having 7 people from all over the world trying to stay on the same page. That's not going to happen easily. So we need to have some type of collaboration. So in my work, we use collaboration tools like WebEx. We also use wiki pages as well. Podcasting. If you haven't heard of podcasting, you got to try it. On any type of mobile device that's a smartphone or a tablet or even utilizing a computer nowadays, you can subscribe to a podcast, get daily updates regarding anything such as news with BBC World News, even to comedy shows, Serial, which is kind of cool if you've ever looked at Serial. I love it. It's something you should look up. But you'll find a lot of cool stuff regarding news and other things regarding even learning. There's a lot of Cisco and IT style podcasts as well. A lot of it's free. There's even video podcasting that's really taken off in the last 3 to 4 years, and video podcasting is another big deal to subscribe and just watch and follow somebody. Lastly, peer-to-peer file sharing. Whenever people heard this, they would always think of torrenting. Torrenting, it's terrible. Torrenting is not terrible. That's not what torrenting is about. Torrenting copyrighted stuff is terrible. That's the problem we see. So when it comes down to peer-to-peer file sharing, there's actually a lot of Linux distributions that are open source and free. And with that being said, it's okay to torrent things like that because people actually have the ability to do it for legal purposes. They actually have the right to do it. Now, if you try to torrent a music album you bought or torrent a file or a game, that's where you get to the legality issues. Microsoft uses torrenting. Even things like Relic Games, Company of Heroes, stuff like that, uses torrenting. It's a legit thing to do. It's just choose safely what to torrent. Okay. So there's a video. It's in the PowerPoint itself, so we're not going to watch it here because literally audio across WebEx does not go so well. So you can watch this on your own, but it's cool. I found it on YouTube. I embedded it in the PowerPoint. Take some time and watch it later. It's kind of cool regarding IoT and the Internet of Things, how the world has changed. So let's talk about different networks that can exist then. With that being said, we have networks based off of size. We have the small home network. Who remembers those computer cabinets? I used to have one at my parents' house years ago. And with our small home networks, nowadays we can see anywhere from 1 device even up to 20 devices. For example, I have a Kindle at home. I have not just a Kindle, but I also have a laptop. Not just a laptop, but I have a smartphone. Not just a smartphone, but I have a Blu-ray player that plugs into my network. And then I have one of those little older Rokus. Me, myself alone, that's 5 devices, and I could think of more too that are probably sitting around in my house. Now, my wife, she'll probably have another 4 to 5 devices if we added up hers, and so forth. 2 people having about 10 connected devices to a network alone right there. Oh yeah, there's the printer. Printer's a wireless printer, 11. And it adds up really quickly. The medium to large networks, though, that's where we see anywhere from 100 plus. That could be 50, 75, 100. You're talking about multiple computers and network printers and network scanners, and then any smart devices that are interconnecting as well. Lastly, you have the worldwide network where you really have to support that regarding tons of networking equipment, firewalls and routers and switches and wireless networks via what are called access points. We have to be able to support these. And you will be the IT people that makes it all work. And trust me, compatibility, it's not all there. So regarding these networks that we're going to start building and putting together, this class, Cisco One, you will start building these networks. We will start configuring a switch, utilizing PCs, and even having a router on a network by the end of this class. That's awesome. So we're going to have client-server networks. This is the most popular network type inside of our small offices and our big businesses. With a client-server network, you're going to have a dedicated server. And here in this picture, we've got a file server. The job of the file server, it's going to serve files. Literally, keep it as simple as possible. The web server is not going to provide the internet, but the web server itself is going to have files and folders, maybe even some graphics and web pages on it. So for example, this could be our company web page. Inside of here, we're not hosting the internet, we're just hosting websites for our local company itself. Users can log into the web page and be able to access resources. For example, why would we want to do that? Well, here at Moraine Valley, we actually have our Moraine Valley web pages. And you've seen this before and you've registered, but MV Connect. This is not hosted on an external server by Amazon Web Services or hosted by somebody else. This is hosted by Moraine Valley Web Server. And when I go into my faculty and staff section, what's the point of it? I can go to forms and I can find a full list of forms that I can download that support me here at Moraine Valley. I got to make an address change. I got to do something writing job descriptions, 10-year goals, anything that I need a form for my department. I can pull up here. And this is on our web server. Well, that looks like a file server. Well, file server and web server can be one and the same on a machine. It's just how it's shown to us. When we see a file server, we can talk about using like FileZilla with an FTP client, File Transfer Protocol. Besides file server and web server, we even have email server. And that's going to be our email at Moraine Valley, for example. Moraine Valley has email.morainevalley.edu. You can browse to it. That's Moraine Valley's email server that we're logging in using Microsoft and Outlook. Now, a server is just going to be a device that serves or provides to other devices. A client, on the other hand, is going to be requesting resources from a server. Very simple. Clients are going to request resources from a server, and servers are going to provide resources to clients. Now, that would be a perfect world if every single office you worked in was a client-server setup, where everything that needed to be centrally hosted was on a server. But that's not how it works. Third job, when I have free time, I have my own incorporated business. I have an S Corp. If you ever look into businesses like LLCs, S Corps, all that crazy stuff. But I have an S Corp, and my business is Midwest IT Consulting. So I have my own consulting firm where I get to choose when I want to work. I get to advertise that I exist when I want to advertise. If I'm too busy teaching and doing other Cisco jobs or traveling, I don't do consulting work. I'm the president of the company. I get to choose when I want to work. So with that being said, I've done a lot of small offices in the Palos and the south suburbs of Chicago area. And one of the offices I worked on it's a plywood office. And with this office, they have 4 cubicles in the office. And with those 4 cubicles, they have 3 employees. Now, the company wanted to overhaul the entire infrastructure for IT. It's just 4 cubicles. How hard can it be? So we actually rebuilt and built them new computers, purchased a multifunction laser network printer. We went with a VoIP service that's hosted out of New Jersey because they were cheaper, so they had voice over IP phones in the office. Deployed an access point for them as well, and webcams and you name it, and hooked it all up so they can talk back with their headquarters, because this plywood company's headquarters is in New Jersey, and they're just a small site for the Midwest area. So anyways, redid their network, but they didn't want to pay for a central server. They didn't want to pay for a centralized server. They did not want to pay to use a cloud service. They just wanted to go with what's called a peer-to-peer network. Oh yeah, John, the boss, he needs to share files. So just have him share the files from his computer. The printer they had before that I had to troubleshoot with them, oh no, we don't want a network printer. We don't want a new printer. We'll just use the USB printers we have. Make it work, right? Sure, I'll make it work. So the USB printer was plugged into one person's computer, and it was being shared via network cable, even though the printer was connected on USB. The problem was when, in this case, her name was Mary, when Mary decided to go to lunch, she would shut down her computer and lock her door. So how are people printing? They can't print because they'd have to connect to her computer, which is connected via USB to the printer. Well, just turn on her computer. The door's locked. You want to go through the drop ceiling? So you have problems that come into play with what are called peer-to-peer networks. Because in peer-to-peer networks, there's no central location for resources. Files are not stored on a server. Files are stored on each person's PC. Each person has to manually share files via the sharing properties of their computer. Also, resources like printers and scanners, if they're directly plugged into an individual PC, yeah, you can share them using that method, but it requires that you have access to the printer wherever it's located. And it also means that the machine is connected to must be turned on. So while these peer-to-peer networks are technically easier to set up than our client servers, we don't have to deploy a centralized server, we don't have to worry about special protection and firewalls and DNS setup and DHCP servers. While they're easier to set up and they're considered less complex, long-term management and long-term security for these things are horrible. Well, what do you mean about security? Well, if this is Mary's computer that's plugged into the printer, well, Mary needs to successfully be able to share that printer with the rest of the network. If Mary changes her network location to public accidentally, well, guess what? That might just disable your printer resources and now people can't access Mary's printer. Also, with file sharing, if this is Bob over here on the far right who's the boss, if Bob wants to share files, he has to create a folder on his machine and share it with specific users. Well, why doesn't he just share with everyone? That's easy. Right click, I've done that. Right click, share, and type in everyone. Well, everyone means everyone that's on the network, which means anyone who hopped on your wireless because maybe Bob the boss said his kids were coming in for the day and his kids brought their tablets or iPhones. Well, now when they hop on the network using the password Bob gave, well, guess what? They can see all the files too, which might include all the HR docs and social security numbers and phone numbers and credit card info for clients. So there's a lot of things that come into play regarding security of, well, how do we actually share files where each user shares files themselves and it's still secure? It would be nicer to have a centralized server where we do usernames and passwords on the centralized server, and we'd be able to have one point of control. So peer-to-peers are easy to build. And commonly, this is what we see in our basic small office networks. This is what we see commonly at homes as well, but it becomes a pain to actually centrally manage and make sure it's secure. So let's switch tracks. Let's go into the hardest part of this course. Well, at least for chapter 1. This is going to be talking about different types of networks, and you'll see why it gets a little weird when we talk about two different terms that we're about to get to. Let's start off with the easy stuff. We have a LAN, and a LAN is just called a local area network. A local area network, it could be your house. A local area network could be the network infrastructure in a classroom. A local area network could be Moraine Valley, the entire Palos Hills campus. It could be. It's going to be a locally owned organization, not the internet, not 3 offices connected over the internet together. It's going to be a single organization in a single geographic region. Now, when you think, well, how do you say that a house can be the same LAN as a LAN local area network would be for Moraine Valley's entire campus? Because it's all based off a geographic location. Moraine Valley in Palos Hills would be one huge network, one huge local area network. But when you talk about connecting Moraine Valley in Palos Hills with Moraine Valley's also site in Tinley, which is the southwest campus, well, then you'd have 2 separate local area networks, geographically distanced from each other, interconnected over something in the middle. That middle would be the interwebs, known as the internet. So we're going to see a local area network known as a LAN. And again, it could be like your house or the Moraine Valley campus. With your LAN, we're going to see network components. We'll see devices that are going to be plugged in. Any network device that talks on a network, it's called a host. It could be a printer. It could be your thermostat. If it's your Nest or a Honeywell Wi-Fi thermostat, that's a host on a network. Your smartphone, a tablet, a network printer. Anything that plugs into a network and it's got an address and it can talk is a host. So besides just having basic devices, we're also going to see the lines between the devices, which are obviously cables, but the term we utilize in IT is that's media. Network media is how we interconnect our devices. We don't just want to say cables because there's tons of different cable types. And with the media, we're going to be talking about copper wires. We'll even talk about fiber optic, which uses glass and laser light, which is like pretty darn cool. Fiber optic cables. It's media. Besides that image I brought over, we have the end devices. And these end devices are those hosts. These are the devices that are going to be talking. They're going to be talking and utilizing the actual network media. They're going to be utilizing devices that we're going to talk about in a second that are called intermediate devices. We'll get there. These end devices is how we interact with the network. You don't just, walk up to your router at your house and say, "Router, get me online." No, you need an end device to help you with that. The end device is going to be the creation or the source of messages, and the end device is going to be the receiver or the destination of messages. So down below, we can have network printers that are wireless or wired. We can have all-in-one PCs. We can have laptops and tablets and smartphones and Kindles and e-readers and even some new smartwatches coming out too that are directly connected to a network. Like, why is there a camera there? Well, nowadays, you can even purchase SD camera cards where the SD camera card supports Wi-Fi. Pretty darn cool. End device. So these end devices are going to be cabled via media to something. And that something is going to be known as intermediate devices. Intermediate devices, these are devices that are going to allow the movement of data from point A, you, to point B, your target. What are they going to do? Well, when we talk about network communication, think of copper wires. With copper wires, network communication, copper wires moves electricity. Network communication is just electricity on a copper wire. So the point of these intermediate devices, one of them is to regenerate and retransmit data signals. Regenerate means they're receiving a voltage on a wire. Over distances, that voltage is going to get weaker and weaker. The longer your cable, the weaker the actual voltage will be as it goes further across. So the job of these intermediate devices is going to be to regenerate that signal, to take it, receive the signal, aka the data, and regenerate it or resend it out brand new, full and strong again. It's like if you have 3 people in a row across mountaintops and they're yodeling to each other. Well, when the first person yodels to the second, hopefully the second will take that yodel, listen to it, and re-yodel. If that's a word, I just made it up. Let's do Scrabble. We'll re-yodel to the third person on the other mountaintop. So regenerating the signal itself. Also, we're going to talk about something called routing. And routing is cool. But routing is more of Cisco too. And routing is the idea of you have devices called routers, and they're going to be able to find a pathway. And when you say, I'm on a computer, I want to go over to eBay.com. Well, your wireless router, your home device, has to be able to take your traffic and route it, aka like GPS, destination, how we're going to get there, route it towards eBay.com, which means I, the router, have to take your request, and I have to successfully understand and learn and know how to pick up your message, put it down on the internet port, and send it out the internet port. The router has to know when to actually route or move traffic on different pathways to reach a target. Also, these intermediate devices are going to be able to send error messages saying you screwed up. You did mess up. You typed in a name for something like www.go0gle.com. It didn't work. Somebody has to let you know it failed. Well, our intermediate devices are going to do that because these are the devices that are set to move our traffic. And when that traffic is moving, what if a link goes down? What if a cable's bad? What if a target that you were trying to hit is no longer there? Well, we need our intermediate devices to help find us alternate pathways. The internet is amazing. The internet is an interconnected mesh of cables. And if one pathway goes down, that's okay. Your traffic will probably still go to the destination because your traffic will find an alternate pathway because our intermediate devices, they're going to actively work on getting your traffic to the target. Even if the original pathway they were taking drops because of a nuclear attack, guess what? The internet was made to try to survive that. And when we talk about things like, hey, ARPANET, and we talk about the West Coast and the creation of the internet, well, the DoD was involved in that too. And a lot of it was meant for us to be able to have communications even in times of war and big concerning issues we don't talk about. So continuing onwards, we also have messages that might be sensitive. For example, you're streaming video or your boss is on a voice over IP phone. Yeah, we don't want our boss's phone conversation to drop. So we actually can talk about something called QoS. QoS stands for quality of service. We don't talk about it at all in this class. Cisco doesn't mention it really at all in the entire series, which is a little upsetting, but I guess it's too complicated. But quality of service is this, and this is one thing I want you to memorize that has nothing to do with our class. Put this in your notes. Quality of service is providing preferential traffic treatment to specific types of traffic. Preferential traffic treatment to specific types of traffic. For example, if you're at home and you have Steam opened up on your machine and it's downloading Left 4 Dead 2 because you wanted to play it again, and it's pulling, I don't know, let's say it's 3 gigs. Well, at that same time you're downloading Left 4 Dead 2, which is 3 gigs, and you're pulling like 2,000 megs, well, let's just say, 20 megs a second, if we can get there. You're pulling 20 megs a second, and then your brother or your sister is using your UMA, which does voice over IP, or you're using, I forgot what the little box is called, it is Google Voice. I had one before. But yeah, you're using something that's voice over IP. Well, is your router going to say, wait, hold up downloading traffic? Steam, stop pulling the entire pipe we have going to our AT&T or Comcast, because somebody's trying to make a phone call. A lot of our basic home routers, a lot of our basic firewalls, they don't care. They say, oh, he wants to download from Steam. Cool. He can suck all the bandwidth. And then somebody goes to make a phone call and you hear, corn, carnival, and like you can't make out a conversation. And that's because voice over IP is just data traffic crossing the internet, just like your download traffic. But if your pipe is saturated from other items, well, there's no preferential traffic treatment helping your voice. So when we talk about business and we talk about this thing called classifying direct messages according to priorities, that means quality of service, QoS. And again, that's providing preferential traffic treatment to specific types of traffic. We're in that situation of Steam and Left 4 Dead 2 versus making a phone call. We can actually have the network device, our router or our firewall, say, hey, that's voice traffic. Put it in front of that download stream. Here's another voice traffic. Put it in front of the queue, in front of the download stream. So every single time a voice traffic packet comes along or a message comes along to your router or firewall, it says, hold up downloading traffic, he's first. And that's all QoS is. There's just a lot of configuration. So let's continue. Lastly, firewalls, permitting or denying flows of data. What that means is we're going to have permits and we're going to have denies. What it really comes down to is commonly our routers and firewalls have an automatic permit. For anything you want to do at home, your router or firewall will say, go for it. I'll let it out. I'll let it go on the internet. Oh, you want to go to that website? Cool, here you go. And by default, commonly our routers and firewalls at home by default say, you're from the internet? I didn't ask for you. I'm going to deny your traffic. What it really means is our basic firewalls and our basic routers at home say if traffic is sourced and originates from the internet, we block it. If traffic is sourced from us and goes out to the internet, we allow it. Well, then we'd never get a virus, right? We'd never get malware. We're inherently secure. You get an email with a link. You click the link. Guess what? You told your router or firewall, send it through because you clicked the link. Once you click that link, it goes out to an external server and says, external server, give me the virus. When that virus starts to come back in, your router or firewall says, he clicked it. He asked for that website. He asked for that link. Cool, I'll let it back in. And that's where we see the problems with cybersecurity and things like malware attacks and ransomware is usually because somebody clicks a link. Thus, for your router and firewall says, cool, he wants it. Traffic that is sourced from the internet and hits your firewall is dropped by default. Traffic that is in response to anything you requested, that's allowed through. And that's our default firewalls we see. In later courses, which is Cisco 2 and Cisco 4, I'll actually teach you how to build access control lists. I'll teach you how to build permit and deny statements to allow or disallow traffic to come in your network. But here we just talk about it. So continuing onwards, network media, we mentioned it. It's how we're going to interconnect our devices. We've got three main things to focus on. We've got copper, which we mentioned. Copper is copper wire, and copper wire is great for electricity. With copper wire, we commonly see limitations of about 300 feet. After a 300 feet length for cable, well, the electricity gets too weak. When the signal gets too weak, you're going to start having errors. So we usually say with copper, you have 100 meters, which is really about 328 feet regarding how long you can run a single cable. With fiber optic, we're talking kilometers. We're literally talking over 20 kilometers now for a single fiber optic run. 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. 1 meter is 3.28 feet. It's amazing fiber optic. Fiber optic is commonly how we see a lot of our ISPs running cables now, especially in cities. There's something that's been rolling out in the last 2 years more so, even in Chicago. It's called Metro E. Metro E is Metropolitan City. Ethernet. Metropolitan Ethernet is fiber optic cable that they're laying across cities to interconnect buildings at gigabits per second speed. Oh, and they can charge hundreds a month for it, and people pay it. Lastly, if you don't want to run copper wire and you don't have millions of dollars to dig up one city block in the city of Chicago, buildings use wireless. And with wireless, people can use point-to-point antennas where you can point two antennas at each other from even over a mile distance, and you can get signal. Forget laying wires, let's go wireless. Well, wireless is great, but it's temperamental with weather and environmental conditions. And then there's a tree that grows, and you're like, dude, the tree grew right between the two wireless point-to-point dishes. Got to cut down the tree. Or if you can't cut the tree, you put your access points higher in the sky, over the tree. Of course, until the tree grows again. So let's continue. So we're going to see these. They're like this is weird. Whenever you read a Cisco book, and I live Cisco Press books, I used to read Shakespeare, and now I read Cisco Press. There's no difference. Kind of funny, but it's true. And whenever you go to read a Cisco Press book, like in the first 10 pages, they'll have this, which is network components. And with the network components, this is actually going to display all the different devices we'll be utilizing inside of our course reading and trying to understand inside of our class. So we're going to see everything such as desktop computers to laptops to tablets to telepresence, which is kind of cool, but it has nothing to do with our class. Wireless routers, switches, and so forth. And we'll be playing with these as we go through the course. Get down these symbols down below, because we'll be seeing these symbols inside a packet tracer when we use that software to practice on our labs. So this is the hardest part of Cisco 1, Chapter 1, topology diagrams. We have two different types of topologies you need to understand. At first, I didn't think it was important, but then when I started studying for my CERT exams when I was a student, I found all the questions on them and I realized how important it was. So these are important for your final exam as well as for your certification exam. So with topologies, what is it? It's a network diagram. We can talk your ear off about it, but most people don't build these. Why? Because it takes time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to build it for the first time, but it also takes a lot of time to keep it up to date, which no one has time to do. So let's talk about it. This is called a physical topology. The physical topology provides us the physical location of the devices and how they're cabled. Very important. If you have, let's say, Chicago Fire Soccer Stadium. The Chicago Fire Soccer Stadium has sales staff. They have an IT staff of one person, a sales staff of about, I think, 25. They have administration, they have security staff that come on site during game days, but they have an IT staff of one. And the previous IT person, before I got there, he had quit, and he took all the network documentation with him because he was upset. So a new person came in. Her name was Gina, sweet lady. I got to work with her as an intern in her IT department of one, and she had to rebuild all of the diagram information for every device and every cable for about 5 different network closets across the entire Chicago Fire Soccer Stadium. IT staff of one. If she would have had anything like this, it would probably saved her maybe a couple days. With physical diagrams, it is so important because you will have some type of server at your office or some type of server at your big business. And this server is going to be receiving log information. Hey, the CPU on switch 1 it's exceeded 90% utilization. The fan has failed on router 2, the CPU fan. It's going to burn up and start on fire. Well, when you hear a message from a device that's somewhere in your business, yeah, router 2 says it's on fire. Where is that again? I think that was on the 3rd floor. Look for the smoke. Now, you need some way to be able to find your devices quickly and easily. Also, if there's a cabling issue or device goes down, you need something very easy and quick in order to actually find which cable goes to what location. And at first, this looks easy, but I want you to think of room 2124 here as one of our networking closets. And with that networking closet, we have, let's say, 85 yellow cables coming from room 2158. 85 cables from 2158 going to 2124, and they're all bundled in one huge bundle. Now, do you have time to sort through 85 cables trying to find the exact one that goes to switch 3? Probably not. Well, there's tools we can buy, like it's called a Tonin probe. I've heard of that in my cabling class. Yeah, there's tools you can buy to help you, but still, the fastest way to know what cable comes from router 1 is literally to have it documented. Now, we can say it, but a lot of people just don't make time to do it. So that's the physical topology. Physical location of devices and how they're cabled. The next one is the most confusing. This is where people get stuck in this class. The logical topology. This is the exact same network as before. With a logical topology, it's not about where devices are physically located. With a logical topology, it is identifying the actual physical ports again themselves, is identifying the actual networks that our devices are organized into. And with the logical topology, it really is all about how data is moving. Well, what do you mean? Going back one page. Back one page, we see, hey, there's switch 3, there's switch 4, there's switch 5. That's kind of cool. There's some PCs in classrooms, it looks like they're hooked to the switches. But the actual organization of the network, even the server room, we need to understand that. When we take a look, we can say, yeah, switch 3, that's the 192.168.100 network. Switch 4 is 101. Switch 5 is 102. So when a user calls and says, hey, I can't access the internet, and you're like, hey, open your command prompt and type ipconfig. It'll give me your IP address. Yeah, 102. You're like, 102. Where is he? He says he's in sales. Why is he in 102? Well, maybe he's plugged into the wrong port. He's plugged into a specific port on the switch. Well, how would we know? We'd have to look at our documentation. The 102 network, why is he there off of router 1? Those are things that come into play again with your documentation. So physical topology, that physical topology is going to be, again, devices are located in a specific place, and also how they're cabled. Logical topology is more about how the network actually moves traffic and what networks users are actually hooked to. We'll get more into networking in Chapter 6. So as you do the course reading, I love this. There's drag and drop activities to keep you awake so you don't fall asleep, because sometimes it does get boring. Been there, done that. I took these classes as a student. So do the drag and drop and other activities to get in the reading. We're not going to do it here. We don't have time for that. So we've already talked about some of this, so they'll be a little bit quicker now because we've hit some recap sections at this point. We've already mentioned LAN, local area network. We've already talked about how it's small geographic areas, interconnecting our users. Really, a local area network is administered by a single organization, as I mentioned previously, for example, Moraine Valley. Let's continue. Wide area networks have one job, and their job is to interconnect all the local area networks. And that's what the internet is all about. What we'll see on the next slide is that the internet is just an interconnection of many different LANs, which are small geographic offices and buildings, connected over wide area networks. These are usually slower links than our LANs. Our local area networks, nowadays, we're pushing gigabit at home. A lot of homes now have 1,000 megs per second and above for their switches and routers and modems at home. A lot of businesses are pushing 10 gigs or 100 gigs a second for their local area networks. But our WANs, the interconnecting of those sites, we usually don't see those speeds. We're lucky if we see 100 megs per second. So that's the internet then. Tons of local area networks, all being interconnected by WANs. And when I say WANs, I want you to think multiple ISPs. There is no single ISP that owns the internet. It's not like, hey, my house is on Comcast, your house is using AT&T. We can't talk. Honestly, the crazy thing, if you do research into back in the day with phone companies back in the day, if you joined Bell versus whatever other thing was out there, if you had two different phone companies, when phone companies first came out, you couldn't talk to each other. Literally, I'm not kidding you. If you take a look into the research of that, people were joining specific phone companies because their friends and family used the same phone company. Otherwise, you couldn't talk. Scary, huh? How the world's changed. Nowadays, anyone can be on any phone company and still talk to each other. And even with the internet, I can be on Comcast at home. You can be on AT&T or Wide Open West. We can still talk. Because a wide area network is an interconnection of multiple LANs, and this whole interconnection is multiple ISPs that are just hooking clients up to the World Wide Web, known as the internet. And then we can all talk across the internet. There's no single group that owns or runs the internet. Now, this is it. The confusion sets in. When we talk about connecting businesses or small offices or hospitals or schools to the internet, there's two other terms that are going to come into play. And these two other terms that are going to come into play are the extranet and the intranet. And the extranet and the intranet can be rather confusing, but I want to put it into a point of view that I've done some work with. With the Plywood office that I've done business for as their consulting company for IT, they actually have what would be considered an extranet and an intranet. What is an intranet? Start there. The workers at this Plywood office have a system. With this system, they can log into on their machines locally, and on this system, they can update how much wood they have from a specific supplier. For example, they have aircraft grade wood. They even have project wood. They have wood that's meant for building houses, and they talk to their suppliers, and then they can upload and actually put in all the information of how many sheets of wood they have from a specific vendor. They have vendors in New Zealand. This office also has vendors even, for example, of Atlantic side, but we won't get there. Too much info. So anyways, so they can update their own local system, and only they can do it. Only they can go into their system and update the vendors, who are they getting the wood from, what the delivery times are, as well as how much sheets of wood they can get from each company. That's the intranet. No one else has access to it but the physical employees in the office. But then there's the extranet. With that same system and server, there is a place there are external clients that they've approved and says, yes, we have your payment info on file. Because we have your payment info on file, you have an account now to our server. When the client connects to the server, they can't change who the vendors are. They can't change how much wood is available at each vendor location. All they can see is what is available from each vendor, then they can pick. And by them being able to pick, they can then actually say, I want this, 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 and this. And when they click checkout, it will then deduct it from the vendor system, where now in the intranet side, now the numbers go down. But the extranet is where our suppliers, where our customers, people with registered accounts from the outside world can come into your local system. But it's with restrictions. Just like when I talked about MV Connect, Moraine Valley's website, with MV Connect, I'm on the intranet. I have a special place where I can download forms and submit things regarding grade changes. Should the students be on that intranet? I don't think so. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be requesting grade changes yourself for your own grades. That wouldn't be cool. So you'd be on the extranet side more, where you have specific features for your purpose. And that's really what it comes down to with intranet versus extranet. Extranet is meant for the external contractors, the customers, the people who want to do the shopping. The intranet is where people are actually able to make the changes on that internal system itself. And they have examples in the course too that you'll get, but it can get kind of confusing. So we're more than halfway through, so that's like close this thing down. We're going to talk about some different internet technologies that exist. We'll go deeper into these as we go through our chapters, especially chapter 3, 4, and 5. We'll go deeper into these. But we'll have our ISP. We know what that is. That's your Comcast, your AT&T. That's the person you're paying for to hook you up to the full internet. Comcast and AT&T don't own Google. They don't own Facebook or YouTube. You're just paying them to give you an access to the internet. You pay them based off of how much bandwidth you want per second, as well as if you have a cap on how many hundreds or gigs you can get each month. Broadband cable. Broadband cable, think of your normal cable TV connection. Back in the day, cable was just TV. But now broadband cable, we can see like the triple play packages, where you can get cable internet, you can get cable TV, and you can even go further with an item number 3 and have some fun with your cable connections. We have DSL, which uses our phone lines. The same phone lines we've had in our houses for like the last 30 years, well, they can carry data as well, and that's called DSL. We'll go more into this later on as well. Wireless WANs. I have a buddy who lives in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. If you haven't heard of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, yeah, wireless WANs, let's talk about it. His house is like one of 5 houses over a 10-mile radius. No ISP wants to pay millions of dollars to dig up street and run cables to 5 houses. How long would it take them to make their money back? For millions for 5 houses? A lot. So at his house, he has a satellite dish. But this satellite dish is not pointing at satellites in the sky. It's pointing at a tower that you see in the distance blinking with a red light so airplanes don't hit it. So his dish is pointed at a tower, and on that tower are directional wireless antennas. So instead of the ISP digging up ground for millions of dollars to run cables to 5 houses, instead they just have a dish on an antenna, on a tower, in the distance that points in their general direction. And now we have a point-to-point wireless for $40 to $70 a month that my buddy pays in Eau Claire, Wisconsin to get like 4G style speeds and horrible latency for gaming. Horrible. But it's a last mile solution where we can still have internet. Mobile services, your 4G, 3G, LTE connection where you can walk around on your phone, tablet, or even Microsoft Surfaces and other things now that support 4G technology. Have you ever heard of Google? Google has some really cool stuff called Project Fi, but Project Fi or FI, look into it, it's kind of neat. Business DSL, it's like DSL above, but you get much better bandwidth and guaranteed service. My DSL, when I lived with my parents about 10 years ago, anytime there was a storm, goodbye internet, because the phone wires were that old and crappy. Yes, that is a word. So business DSL is more guaranteed bandwidth and guaranteed service for uptime. Leased lines and Metro Ethernet. We kind of mentioned these when I talked about Metro E earlier. This is the idea of interconnecting 2 sites directly. What do you mean directly? Think of an office building in Chicago and an office building in Florida. They don't want to reach Google. They want to reach only each other. And when we say leased line, you're paying $300 to over $1,300 a month, depending on speed, to have a point-to-point, one office to one office connection. Where across a huge geographic distance, you're leasing a directly connected cable or something that's acting like a directly connected cable. And on this connection, there is no Google. On this connection, there is no Facebook. The connection is just to hook 2 offices directly together over the internet. And again, no Google, no Facebook, nothing. Just a connection for two offices to talk to each other directly. It's considered much more secure and much more guaranteed for bandwidth. But you pay an arm and a leg to get it. Metro Ethernet I already mentioned, city streets, digging up ground, dropping in fiber optic cables, and hooking up buildings in the same metropolitan area, aka big cities. We don't see Metro Ethernet in suburbs like Palos or Orland Park or Tinley. We don't see that. It's not worth the millions of dollars of digging up city streets. They're getting in the cities, big cities. So here's your example. This is it. DSL, home users, cable, home users, cellular, us, home users and teleworkers like me. I get to sit on the beach, 4G connection, I can do my work and get paid. Woohoo! Small offices and even some larger offices, we see our wireless connections, whether it's bounced off a satellite because you like working in the middle of the desert or working on a boat, satellite comes in handy. Or if you're in the middle of Arizona or Alamogordo, New Mexico, where I've been, Alamogordo, New Mexico, you may just be stuck with dial-up. It does still happen. So however you're going to connect, make sure you're just comfy with what these different technologies are. Now this is a horrible graphic because the graphic is so massively big that it's horrible to try to display on a computer. You need to display it on like a huge high definition TV. When we mention satellite, what we're really talking about with satellite is the idea that you have a device known as a satellite that is orbiting the Earth at the same speed the Earth is moving. A really sidestep conversation. But if you're here, let's say in Chicago, and you pay for a satellite connection, well, you expect it to be always available, right? Now, that company you're paying, let's say $150 a month, do they have 50 satellites floating around Earth at the same given moment? So wherever you are in Chicago, you should be able to find a new satellite crossing over? We have something that's actually called geosynchronous orbit. And I need a second because I'm going to try to find my file. I have a picture. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. This is IT, and I want people to really get it. Because when we talk about, satellite internet, it's basic, satellite phone call, basic. Well, it depends. When we talk about satellites and internet, a lot of the terms we see is geosynchronous orbit. Why do I care? Because it's really cool. So when we talk about to scale, and we talk about how things actually work, get this. In order to have a satellite overhead 24/7 that rotates at the same speed as the Earth. So when I'm standing in Chicago, it's always the same satellite above me. And I don't have to wait for a new satellite to cross over. The satellite has to be deployed 35,786 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. wait. So when you talk about like satellite dishes on houses and they're pointed at one location, you're not moving your satellite dish every 2 hours, are you? It's just pointed at one location in the sky. Well, that's because that one location is a satellite that's in geosynchronous orbit that is above your head 24/7 because it's 35,786 kilometers, where 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters above the Earth. So let's zoom out a little bit because this is to scale. So that satellite is right there before the red line. We'll keep going. Oh, look, and there's the Earth. Well, let's zoom in over here and see what is this stuff? What is this stuff right here? Well, let's see. When we talked about Sputnik, like back in the time of the let's just say Russians, Cold War. Yeah, Sputnik was right here, that green line. That's where we've come from. The Cold War with Sputnik 1 was 215 kilometers away. The Hubble Space Telescope, about 600 kilometers away. And so now when we talk about geosynchronous satellites that are sitting above your head 24/7, yeah, we're talking all the way out here on the right, 35,000 kilometers away. So put that in perspective when you're like, yeah, I have satellite. Think what it's actually doing. You're shooting a signal from your dish on your house 35,000 kilometers away. Is there life out there? Well, I don't know how we didn't find it yet after shooting 35,000 kilometers away with a dish on my house. Cool and crazy. Have fun with this stuff, and that's what IT is. You got to have fun with it, otherwise you'll hate your job forever. And now we go back to the lecture. That's my 2 cents soapbox thing. Make your life fun. Let's continue. All right. So we've talked about the home style connections, and here's the business ones that we mentioned. Being able to have a dedicated leased line, which the whole idea of a leased line is hooking two businesses directly together. No Google, no Facebook, just long distance dedicated connection. Metro Ethernet, we mentioned it. DSL, we mentioned it. And again, satellite, 35,000 miles away. We mentioned it. Not miles, kilometers. So that's last big section. And then we just go into the basic BYOD, bring your own device, and we shut it down. So network as a platform. Yeah, we can run applications. Yeah, we can do Steam. We can do Origin. Hey, look, there's a Steam Link box now. You plug it into your TV and it hooks to your Steam machine in the basement. Cool. Well, that's our network as a platform. Back in the day, I used to go to middle school. And in the middle school, we had huge CRT TVs on the walls, the huge tube TVs. And when you wanted to watch a movie in science class when I was in middle school, the teacher would pick up a phone and the phone would call down to the tech room. And in the tech room, they'd put in the VHS tape. And when they put the VHS tape into the player in the tech room, it would transfer the VHS across our cable network and display on the TV in the classroom. And that was the TV network. Even as of like 10, 12 years ago, people would have TV cables in their house to hook to the TVs. And then for phones in the house, you'd have your RJ11 connections on your phone lines in your house. And then for internet in your house, you'd have your RJ45 connectors on 8-pin copper wires known as Ethernet cables. These were separate networks. And in businesses, they were still separate networks. Even cameras, you'd have cameras that use coax cables, separate networks in a business. But now we say, forget that. We have what's called a converged network. And with a converged network, we can utilize voice phones, video, TV, and cameras, and computer data all on a single network infrastructure, all using the same copper Ethernet 8-pin cables. They all use the same media. Now you're like, well, they don't all, because I can go on Amazon or eBay right now, Justin, and I can buy myself a coax connected security camera. Well, yes, you can. But right now you can also go on Amazon or eBay right now and buy a network security camera using PoE, power over Ethernet, where the camera can receive power off of the same network cable it's sending data on, which is pretty darn cool. Nowadays, we can deliver our voice, video, and data on the exact same cables. Yes, people have lost jobs because of this. Now we don't need 3 IT departments, we can have 1. But even though people have lost jobs because of this, it also has increased the amount of jobs that are out there because of this technology. If you go to Brookfield Zoo, I love Brookfield Zoo, and not only do you see the hippopotamus and you see the rhinos, but if you usually look a little closer up around towards about 8 feet, 10 feet off the ground, you'll see Cisco wireless access points, outdoor, rugged version, deployed everywhere. If you look closely as you go to the stores at Brookfield Zoo or to the convention center where they have conferences, you'll see Cisco VoIP phones everywhere. And it's all connected on the exact same type of cable. The phones, as well as the security cameras and the wireless access points. Voice, video, data, one single converged network to deploy a network easier. But with that being said, our technology has to understand it. When we have TV broadcast coming across a network cable, the network has to know how to understand it. A router or a switch or an access point supporting wireless that sees a TV broadcast message has to understand it. So what we see here is that when our technology started to use our network cables and technology had to understand how to forward that data, how to understand that what the data was, where it needs to go. And we'll be talking more about that in the upcoming chapters of how our devices read network data. Because it's amazing what we're pushing across our networks nowadays, and our routers and firewalls and switches and wireless access points all understand how to handle it. And that's based off something called rules. But that's for another day. So going further, we get to talk about some basic items. When we build our networks, we're going to talk about fault tolerance, scalability, QoS, which we already did, and security. And we'll be going through these in the next couple slides. And this is like the last heaviest part of our chapter 1. With fault tolerance, we want to focus on what's called reliability. And with reliability, the idea is we need to build an advanced network that can handle failure. And failure can be anything such as a cable going down, like one of these wires going red, aka it got unplugged, or someone cut it with a pair of scissors, or someone tripped on it and pulled it out of the port. Or a failure could be an entire device dropping. Well, when we talk about businesses nowadays, we talk about reliability. And one of the key things you'll hear in your cybersecurity classes, you'll hear it in your redundancy and VMware courses and virtualization, is 5 nines. And 5 nines just means 99.999. And what we're referring to is uptime. Our Fortune 500 companies expect 99.999% uptime, 24/7. 99.999 uptime all year long. Well, how does that happen if a router power supply blows out on you? Here at Moraine Valley, we had one of our network devices start shooting out smoke. The power supply started to fry, and as the fan was keeping it cool, the fan was ejecting smoke like a turbine out the back. Yeah, well, we can't just unplug the router and say, yeah, business is going to be down for 5 hours. Well, no, maybe 2 days. We got to go on Amazon and buy a new one, and then we got to plug it in and configure it and make sure it works. You don't have that, so we have to find ways to be able to have redundant devices, an extra device, redundant cables, extra cables. You do that for failover. Now, scalability. Scalability is being able to grow our network. Hey, you know what? Yeah, we've had this office building for 10 years. It's been great, but we just hired a whole new in-person sales and marketing staff. Where are we going to put them? Like, I don't know. Well, you're the IT guy. Where are you going to put them? Like, okay. So you need to be able to have a plan that allows you to make your network scalable. When we add on, let's say, 30 users, 10 users in this PC, and let's just say that's 10 PCs, 10 PCs, 10 PCs. We add on 30 users. Well, how do we add them on? Are we just going to hook them to a current switch? That's going to overwhelm that link to the router. We'll hook them over here. We already got the phones there. It's going to overwhelm the bandwidth that we're utilizing. So yeah, let's buy a new switch. Where are we going to put it? Well, scalability. We know we have ports open on this router. We'll hook a new switch off of that router and hook our 30 users off of that switch. My home network is not scalable. I have a wireless access point in my garage. I have a wireless access point in my hallway by the bedrooms. One of them is plugged into a firewall. The other access point is plugged into a switch. My house network is all over the place. I don't usually have time to play with it. It just works the way I have it set up now. But if I have more time to play with it, I'll make it nice and scalable. But right now, I just have random stuff plugged in everywhere. Last two, quality of service. We've already mentioned it. And again, preferential traffic treatment. That's all it is. You get to pick and choose what type of traffic is more priority than others. Downloading a torrent should not overwhelm your phone conversations. It shouldn't. So you need devices that support the quality of service feature. Security, you can talk about network security, what type of traffic people are allowed to send. Hey, you're sending unencrypted banking info. That shouldn't happen. Hey, look, there's no username and password on your router. Or it's the default one. Everyone knows Linksys' default username and password. We should probably change that. Yeah, you should. So basic security for your network, whether it's locking down your network devices themselves or locking down the type of traffic that's allowed to cross your network. We prefer encrypted web browsing using HTTPS over unencrypted. So we're there. This is it. This is the end run. The CIA, just like the NSA and the DoD and the DIA, not really. The CIA, you'll see this 3-letter acronym term many times over, especially Security Plus. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It's very easy. Just know this. Confidentiality, encryption. People can see your data 24/7. They can see it. Let me explain. When you browse the web, you're sending requests to Google and Facebook and Twitter and Chase Bank and eBay and PayPal. Well, with encryption, your data is garbled. So what's crossing the internet and this whole public scary place called the web is encrypted data. People can capture your data. They can take it, but they can't read what you're really sending. They can't read your bank account numbers because it's encrypted. But they will see garbled messages crossing the web. And confidentiality is this. Data will be encrypted. The only people that can read the data are people who can decrypt it. Well, encryption, very basic 10 seconds, you have a key. And this key allows you to take your original plain text data and you garble it. The only person that can decrypt it are people with the same key. So confidentiality, my data is encrypted, thus for only the authorized recipient can receive it, aka only the authorized person can decode it. Anyone can receive your data as it crosses the web, anybody. But if it's encrypted, even though they're receiving it, they can't understand it. So that's what confidentiality really means when they say authorized recipient, someone who's authorized to decode it. Integrity. As your data is created at point A, for example, my computer, if I say, hey, email to my office secretary, great work this summertime. Here's your summertime bonus, $150. I send it with $150. With the message, I actually send a hash. And the hash says, when my message was sent, this is the code. This is the code that says my message said this exact statement. And now when the message is received at the office manager via email, she opens it up and reads it. Oh, great, I got a summer bonus for $150. Hash. And the hash down below is the exact same hash I sent, which says the message you're receiving has not been modified. If the secretary receives the message, and the message instead says, great job, summer bonus, $15,000, how do we know that it was changed? How do we know if someone intercepted it and modified the message? I don't know. You don't know. With a hash, you can. We'll talk more about hashing in later courses, especially in security, but you can run a hash against any message and you'll get a specific output of a hash. With a specific hash or output, we'll be able to see if it's the same hash as when we created the message. So when I create the message, I can run a hash and the hash will give me A, B, C, D, E, F. When the secretary receives the message, she can take the message and toss it in a hash calculator, and she can see A, B, C, D, X, Y, and then she knows the message was different because it's not the same original hash of A, B, C, D, E. We'll get to that more in security classes. It's not for us to play with, but integrity is all about making sure data has not been altered in transit, and the whole idea there is people can grab your traffic. They can grab emails. It's called a man-in-the-middle attack. They can modify it and forward it on its way. But how would you know it was modified? And that's what integrity is about. Availability is the last thing. Availability, what good is a web server? What good is eBay or Amazon if you can't reach it? You can have the most awesome username and passwords on it. You can be utilizing integrity with hashing, but what's the good of it if no one can reach it? You can be paying $550 a month to have an awesome internet pipe. But if your router or your firewall can't be reached, your web servers can't be reached, what's the good of it? So we talk about 24/7 access. We talk about the 5 nines of reliability. Well, is your data actually available? Is that server actually reachable? If Anonymous is doing a DOS, or Lizard Squad, or whatever the bear one from Russia they're talking about now is doing a denial of service attack against your server. Cool. Good thing you have this super powerful, awesome server and a fast pipe, but none of the clients across the world can reach it. Your business is going down then. So there's different solutions that you can purchase. That's in the security classes. You can go into that. But there's options. Make your data available. So here's the Cisco promo. This is really not too much of our final exam, not really too much in our Cisco certification exams, so we'll take this rather quick. Networking trends, honestly, this stuff is out of date. Like, they just put this up, like, I want to say 6 months ago, but still, it's already out of date. IT changes so fast. BYOD, I know, like BYOB, I don't know why that happened. But bring your own device, yeah, it's still huge, but a lot of companies don't like it because it's also bring your own disaster. Hey, look, I'm bringing my laptop from home to work. I can use it at work. This is great. Oh, yeah, oops. Yeah, it did have a virus on it, and now it's on the work network, taking down everything. I'm sorry. Even schools have tried BYOD, and some schools have turned away from it because it's brought viruses onto the school network and infected the email server on the school network, which then the email server infected shared the infection to all the machines that download email, aka everybody. So BYOD, as great as it is to save money because now workers can use their own equipment, we don't have to provide it at our offices, also is bring your own disaster. Online collaboration, we've already mentioned it. Video communications, when you talk about things like WhatsApp and Skype, and you talk about things like FaceTime, and you talk about Snapchat, seriously, the world is changing. Snapchat and their glasses now that we've heard about in Europe and other places, I don't know if they've been deployed in the US, crazy stuff going on. Cloud computing is the new norm. You probably don't hear much about it, you probably don't study much about it, but there's something I'd encourage you to look into. A couple of our students have been getting jobs with this. It's called AWS. AWS, if you actually were to Google it, you'll find out that, hey, AWS, I know what that A is. I shop there. Well, AWS is Amazon Web Services. You're like, wait, Amazon sells web services? We're so used to Amazon the store, or Amazon that stream music using Amazon Prime or videos. But what's even bigger than all that, where Amazon makes lots of money, is AWS. Amazon Web Services is all about cloud services and selling cloud availability. Where, you know what? We're Cisco and Netacad.com. Well, guess what? Cisco and Netacad.com is not running out of Cisco's headquarters in San Jose. They're not running the networking academy for the entire world out of San Jose. Cisco is paying Amazon Web Services to use Amazon Web Services network connections and physical equipment to run Netacad.com. Cisco doesn't host it themselves. Companies pay Amazon to host their software, to host their equipment, to host their networking connections from Amazon. They pay monthly. Because then Amazon will worry about the security. Amazon will worry about the firewalls. Amazon will worry about the denial of service attacks. And Amazon will worry about the CPU utilization and the RAM and the amount of hardware and the solid state drives that we need. We'll just pay them monthly to host what we need hosted. And that's the way the world is shifting. So when we talk about, hey, cloud, you're like, cloud. precipitation, right? Evaporation. When we talk about cloud, I want you to think Amazon Web Services, which is literally like running the world right now regarding cloud hosting. And they have certifications, and they have training classes in Chicago, and they have training across the US. And that is a great thing to get into because it is massive, and pretty much it's kind of almost like monopoly, but I don't want to say that word because people don't like monopolies. But AWS, Amazon Web Services, research into that. Other trend, I put this in here myself because I think it's important, smart homes. Smart homes is not just, my house has a thermostat. We can go so much greater than that. When we talk about Wink hubs, or we even talk about Samsung Smart Things, or you even say, I have an Echo. Even an Echo Dot for $39.99, even though it listens to you when you don't want it to listen to you, and it records your conversations, and government talks about that. Even though it does things like that, it's really cool for what it can support. I have an Echo Dot for $40 on sale, and I got it at home, and I can tell it to play music, and it'll stream music via Bluetooth to my speakers in my ceiling I installed. I can tell it to change my thermostat to 70 degrees, and it'll connect to my Honeywell Wi-Fi thermostat, change the temperature of my house. I can tell it even to lock or unlock a front or back door if I wanted to. I don't do that because I don't want to have people talking to my Alexa, but you can have it do crazy cool things like that, and you can have smart home control. But this is not just for homes anymore. Now it's going also with businesses. We're seeing smart office buildings. We're seeing office buildings that understand that you've arrived because of a key fob on your keychain, and there's a sensor near the front door that says, Justin's arrived, clocked in, or Justin's arrived, boots up his computer, and even turns on his AC in the office. It's amazing how the world is changing with smart home technology that's now also smart business technology. Future stuff, this is kind of random, and it's the whole concept. This is not legit yet, but there's a lot of concept stuff coming into play. There's 2 companies in China that are working on smart clothing that has sensors built into it that'll tell you your heart rate, that'll tell you your breathing, they'll tell you if you need to rest or relax, and can tell you to push harder in a workout, just built into your shirt and your shorts themselves. Amazing. Besides that, we're also seeing a company working on what are called smart surfaces. We're imagining a kitchen countertop where the entire countertop is just built and of a couple things. Think Cold Stone ice cream. You have cold surface to work on. The surface can automatically turn cold when it detects ice cream. The surface can turn hot to heat up a pan if it detects you put a pan down. You can actually have this coming into play in the future, and that's what they're building is smart surfaces for a kitchen. We have new houses coming into play where we have sensors based off of sunlight and thermostat, where a sensor can detect if the thermostat and HVAC system is having trouble cooling the house, and it will automatically tell the drapes and shades to close that are on motors. Like house is having trouble lowering the temperature, the sun is too bright, lower the shades, and it'll do it automatically. We've seen this coming into play more in the West Coast, in New Mexico and Arizona, where they're building a lot of new smart home technology. So there's a lot of concept stuff in the works. But still, let's continue to real stuff. Power line networking, it hasn't really taken off, but some people use it. I haven't tried it myself because I've used wireless across my house. But if you're in a building that has a lot of brick walls and doesn't have a lot of easy access to move network cables through, sometimes people want to go through this method. And it's called a power line adapter. And you can pick these up on Amazon, eBay. I shop on Newegg, so I put a link here for it. But these power line adapters, they plug into your wall outlet. And what are wall outlets? Well, I've taught myself electrical via YouTube. Scary, but I can do basic electrical. But with electrical, you have copper wires. Hey, copper wires is what we use for networking too, right? Yes, it is. So when we talk about copper wires being our electrical, what we can actually do is we can plug these guys into the wall outlets in your house. And you plug a network cable into it. And now, network cable coming out of the bottom of this goes to your router, goes to your PC. And then it carries that data through the wall outlet itself, through the electrical circuits in your house. The data is carried across until it reaches another one that can then receive the data off the network and put it back onto a network cable again. It's called power line networking. When they first started off, they were like 10 megs a second. Now, this one, $72, supports up to 1.2 gigs per second across your power line network, and even supports wireless, which is cool. Actually, I'm going to take that back. Multiple in, multiple out. Usually that's a wireless technology. This might not support wireless. I'd actually have to do some research. I did a random search. But anyways, if you don't have good wireless in your house, and you have a long run where network cables just can't reach because it's all brick walls, you could try power line networking. Don't hear the best things about them, but it's kind of a cool as a middle ground solution. Wireless broadband, like my buddy who lives in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. He got this wireless router, in this case would be like from Verizon. And with Verizon, this wireless router, it doesn't connect to Verizon's 4G network just from this tower. On the back, there's 2 antennas for external antennas. So you actually screw on an antenna cable here, and that then goes to the antenna that's mounted to the top of your house, which points, as I mentioned before, to that big tall antenna that you see in the distance with the red flashing light so airplanes don't collide into it. And that's your wireless internet service provider, your wireless WAN. So we have a internet port that's blocked off because the internet port is really the antenna on your house that's plugged into the antenna jacks. We have computer jacks. You can plug in your computers or other switches in your house. Then even phone line jacks if your Verizon connection also supports phone line usage. And I found this online and pulled this and stole it from somewhere on Google. So copyright somewhere on that graphic. But yeah, it's cool because you actually plug in your external antenna that's on your roof to this thing, which then is your internet connection. It's your internet cable. It's to your antenna on the roof. We don't have time in this class, Cisco 1, to be security experts. This is introduction to networking after all. But there's some common terms here I'd want you to take some look at. And we're going to go into viruses, worms, and Trojan horses later on in chapter 10 and 11. We bring them up again. But these are mainly talked about in your Security Plus class. So make sure you take LAN 153. LAN 153 is Security Plus. It's a CompTIA certification. I have it. It's awesome. Everyone should get a Security Plus cert. It doesn't matter if you're doing cloud. I want to do cloud. Or if you're doing, I just want basic networking. Everyone should do Security Plus. That'll help you out everywhere. And even the government and DoD and the NSA, I can tell you from experience, wants Security Plus candidates. So do that. We have viruses, worms, and Trojan horses. We're not going to break them apart here. That's not for us to do. Those are common items that we get from emails because we download or click on a link, or you get that, hey, look, Firefox.js. I should download this. This says I should update my Firefox. Don't believe it. Spyware and adware, ways for companies and malicious people to track what you're doing so they can sell the data and make money off of it. Zero-day attacks. One word, Stuxnet. If you've never heard of Stuxnet, Stux, like S-T-U-X, net, N-E-T, one word, look it up. Hacker attacks. Hacker attacks, anonymous. You ever heard of anonymous? YouTube, anonymous. Lizard Squad, whatever that, it's not Panda Bear. It's like the Grizzly Bear, whatever that Russia thing has been going on. DNC and all the other stuff. Denial of service attacks, also back to anonymous. Being able to attack a target and take it down temporarily. Data interception and theft. People who are just stealing your data. Yeah, we're selling this thing on Craigslist. Yeah, click on this link. Yeah, put in your login info. Yeah, put in your info. Yeah, or pay us. Well, a lot of stuff on Craigslist where people ask for your credit card number or your username and password info. If you look at your top of your browser bar, you'll see it's HTTP. No encryption. Just type in your credentials and they'll just steal it. Also goes into with identity theft. There's tons of security solutions that are out there. Again, this is not for us to cover in Cisco 1. The topic alone of IPS, intrusion prevention systems, is massive. You can spend an entire course on an IPS system. Also, access control lists, that's for another course as well. Permitting or denying traffic. Dedicated firewalls, another course. Security Plus and Certified Ethical Hacking. That's 163 and 153. Make sure you go into that. Firewall filtering and antivirus, anti-spyware. We'll get some of those basics in this class. Also, will just come up in conversation. VPNs are astounding and amazing. I will teach you those in Cisco 4, which is LAN 266, another class I teach. So make sure you read chapter 1 because this is it. And it's a huge overview of some stuff we're going to cover in this class. We'll be seeing physical topology, logical topology again. We'll see internet, extranet, intranet again. But make sure you hit it here so you get the right kickoff. This chapter is like the gun went off, the race has started, it's time to get moving in this course.